Rachel just wanted a moment of peace, lost in the pages of her favourite book under the shade of an oak tree in the park. But the afternoon's tranquility is broken when a stranger sits next to her and utters an unexpected phrase. From that moment on, what seemed to be just another ordinary afternoon turns into something greater, an encounter that could change the course of her life. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Rachel Winters looked at the numbers on her screen, trying to make sense of the financial spreadsheets that occupied her day. The spacious office of the multinational where she worked was impeccable and modern, but sometimes it seemed to suffocate her. The artificial ventilation, the fluorescent lights, the hallway conversations, all of this contrasted with the comfort she felt when she was alone with her books. At 28, Rachel had established an organized routine. She woke up at 6 a.m., went for a morning run, prepared a simple breakfast, worked diligently as a financial assistant, returned to her modest apartment, and ended her days with a good book, a structured and predictable life. Rachel, are you going to the company party on Friday? Melissa, her co-worker, asked, leaning on the partition of her desk. I don't think so. I have some reports to review, she replied with a polite smile. You always have excuses, Melissa sighed. David from the marketing department asked about you, you know. He's handsome, single. Rachel nodded, showing no interest. She was already familiar with this scenario. Well-meaning friends trying to set her up with someone, followed by looks of pity when she refused or when the attempts failed. It wasn't that Rachel didn't want a romance. Quite the contrary. She grew up dreaming about it. She watched her high school friends receiving secret notes in their lockers, flowers on Valentine's Day, invitations to dances. For Rachel, those romantic gestures always remained in the realm of imagination. Darling, you are beautiful, her mother Eleanor would say whenever Rachel confided in her about this issue during her teenage years. You just haven't found the right person yet. Her father, Gregory, a practical yet affectionate man, used to joke, If you don't get married, I'll take care of you forever, princess. He didn't realize how those words, although said with love, reinforced the idea to Rachel that something was wrong with her. Rachel kept a small diary from her adolescence in her drawer. On a yellowed page she had written at 16 years old, Why am I invisible to boys? I'm kind. They say I'm pretty. I try to be interesting. What is missing? As the years went by, that question was silently buried, but never truly answered. It was a spring Friday when Rachel decided to leave work early. Her boss, Mr. Richardson, had approved her latest report with praise, and she felt she deserved a small reward. At her apartment, she swapped her corporate attire for a light blue casual dress, grabbed her latest mystery book, The Last Enigma, and headed to the municipal park. The park was pleasantly quiet that afternoon. A few families scattered across the lawn, elderly people feeding pigeons, and occasional joggers passing by on the paved paths. Rachel found a bench under an old oak tree overlooking the small lake. The wooden bench bore signs of use, with initials carved by loving couples over the years. Rachel ran her fingers over a heart engraved with J+M and smiled wistfully. Adjusting her reading glasses, Rachel immersed herself in the pages of her book. The detective protagonist was about to discover a crucial piece of evidence in a complicated case. Rachel loved these moments of tension and revelation. Romance novels she had abandoned long ago. They only reminded her of what she had never experienced. So engrossed was she in the narrative that she did not immediately notice when someone sat down next to her on the bench. She just felt a vague presence on the periphery of her consciousness. Then, a masculine voice, soft and with an amused tone, broke her concentration. Don't look now, but you are being watched. Rachel froze, her heart racing. Years of reading psychological thrillers had instantly made her imagine the worst scenarios. A stalker? A criminal? Instinctively, she looked up from her book. In front of her, sitting on its hind legs, was a huge golden retriever with golden fur gleaming in the sun. Its bright brown eyes were staring at Rachel with an almost human intensity, its tongue hanging out in a canine smile. "I think he likes you," said the man next to her. Rachel turned to look at the owner of the voice. A man in his 30s, brown hair slightly tousled by the wind, piercing green eyes and a warm smile that formed small wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. He was holding a blue leash. "He startled me." Rachel laughed, her tension dissipating. She reached out to stroke the animal's head, which immediately closed its eyes in contentment and rested its muzzle on her lap. "At least someone liked me," she murmured to herself. "You must be someone special," commented the man, surprising her by having heard her remark. "You know how dogs can sense when someone is a good person." Rachel felt warmth rise up her neck. She wasn't used to receiving attention like this, direct, yet kind. "I'm Eric Donovan," he introduced himself, extending his hand, "and this persistent gentleman is Rufus." "Rachel Winters," she replied, shaking his hand briefly. She noticed a small callus on his thumb. "Do you guys come here often?" "Almost every day after work. Rufus needs to burn off energy or he'll turn my apartment into a war zone." Eric smiled, scratching the dog's ear. "I'm a veterinarian. And you? I've never seen you here before. First time at the park?" "No, I come here occasionally to read," she showed the book cover, "but usually on weekends. Today I got off work early." "The Last Riddle. Is it good? I'm looking for something new to read." Before Rachel could respond, Rufus suddenly stood up, alert. A group of ducks had landed near the lake's edge. With an enthusiastic bark, the dog pulled the leash from Eric's distracted hands and dashed toward the birds. "Rufus, no!" Eric shouted, jumping to his feet. "Sorry, I need to prevent a duck massacre." Rachel watched, amused, as Eric ran after the dog, which was now chasing the ducks in circles. The scene was comical. A grown man stumbling over his own apologetic words, while his dog, completely oblivious, celebrated its momentary freedom. The situation reached its peak when Rufus, in his enthusiasm, jumped straight into the lake. Without hesitation, Eric waded into the water up to his knees to rescue the animal. When he finally returned to the bank, he was completely soaked but smiling. "Well, that was refreshing," he said with an amused tone, running a hand through his wet hair. Rufus, apparently satisfied with his adventure, shook himself vigorously, spreading water everywhere. Rachel couldn't help but laugh. "You two make quite the pair." "He's the star. I'm just the clumsy assistant." Eric shrugged, still smiling. "I think we should go home and dry off before we catch a cold. It was a pleasure meeting you, Rachel." "Likewise," she replied, surprised by the slight disappointment she felt upon seeing him leave. Eric waved one last time before walking away, Rufus now obediently at his side, occasionally looking back in Rachel's direction. She tried to return to her reading, but her mind kept drifting back to those brief moments of interaction. There was something genuine about Eric, something that made her smile when recalling the comical scene at the lake. "Stop it, Rachel," she murmured to herself. "It was just a casual conversation in the park." But in the following days, while working on her spreadsheets, Rachel found herself thinking about the awkward veterinarian and his enthusiastic dog. She considered going back to the park at the same time but dismissed the idea. It would be too obvious, too desperate, she thought. Besides, what guaranteed he would be there again? Or that he would remember her? The next Wednesday, Rachel stayed late at the office finishing an important quarterly report. When she finally finished, it was already past 9 at night. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she had skipped dinner. A slice of cake from Harrison's bakery wouldn't be a bad idea, she thought, knowing that the shop stayed open until 10. Their cinnamon cake with cream cheese frosting always comforted her on stressful days. The bakery was on her way home, on a side street lit by old-fashioned lampposts. The sweet aroma of freshly baked goods filled the air even from meters away. Rachel bought her favourite slice, and balancing the small box in one hand and her purse in the other, walked out through the glass door. It was when she felt the impact. Something big and furry collided with her legs, knocking her off balance. The box with the cake flew from her hand as she fell onto the sidewalk. "Rufus! No!" shouted a familiar voice. Before Rachel could process what was happening, the golden retriever was on top of her, enthusiastically licking her face as if he were reuniting with an old friend. "It seems like Rufus always finds you," said Eric, hurrying to get the dog under control. His face showed a mix of surprise and embarrassment as he extended his hand to help her up. "I'm sorry about your cake. And your clothes." Rachel looked at her suit, now covered in paw marks and dog hair. The cake box lay open on the sidewalk, its contents scattered. "Let me make it up to you," Eric insisted, already leading her back into the bakery. "It's the least I can do after my dog attacked you, twice." Rachel wanted to say it wasn't necessary, but there was something in Eric's remorseful look that made her accept. They sat at a table in the corner outside the almost empty bakery. Rufus lay obediently under the table, occasionally resting his head on Rachel's foot. "2 slices of... what was it again?" asked Eric. "Cinnamon cake with cream cheese," Rachel replied. "My favourite since childhood. My mother used to make a similar one for my birthdays." "Excellent choice," Eric smiled, placing the order with the waitress. A momentary silence hovered over them. Rachel realised she was nervous, something she had never felt before. "And then?" Eric broke the silence. "What is a financial assistant doing so late at the office?" "How do you know I'm a financial assistant?" Rachel asked, surprised. Eric pointed to the corporate badge she still wore around her neck. "Oh, right," she laughed, putting the badge in her bag. "Quarterly report. Numbers, charts, forecasts. Nothing too exciting." "Don't underestimate your work," Eric replied. "Someone needs to ensure the money is where it should be. Meanwhile, I spend the day dealing with dogs that have eaten socks and cats that refuse to take medicine." The conversation flowed naturally from there. Rachel discovered that Eric was 32 years old, had graduated in veterinary medicine 6 years ago after giving up a career in law, and had adopted Rufus from a shelter 3 years ago. He spoke about his work with genuine passion, his eyes shining as he recounted stories of animals he had treated. "And you? Have you always wanted to work in finance?" he asked. Rachel hesitated. "Actually, I dreamed of being a writer. I still write a little, but just for myself. Finance was the practical choice." "What do you write?" "Short stories, mainly. Some bad poetry," she smiled, embarrassed to share something so personal. Eric didn't mock or change the subject as Rachel feared. Instead, he asked her to talk more about her stories, listening attentively as she described the characters and themes she usually explored. The 2 slices of cake turned into 4. 1 cup of coffee turned into 2. And before they knew it, the waitress was gently informing them that the pastry shop was closing. "My God, it's already 10:30, Rachel exclaimed, surprised at how the time had passed. "Can I walk you home?" Eric offered. "The streets are quiet, but—" "I would love that," Rachel replied, surprising herself with her own spontaneity. The walk to her apartment, which normally took 10 minutes, lasted almost half an hour. They walked slowly, still engrossed in conversation, while Rufus trotted happily beside them. Rachel noticed how comfortable she felt. There wasn't that anxiety that usually accompanied her social interactions. Upon reaching the door of her building, there was a moment of hesitation. "Well, here we are," she said, pointing to the building. "It was a wonderful night, Rachel," Eric responded, his gaze meeting hers. "Maybe we can do this again? Intentionally this time, not because of dog collisions." Rachel felt a warmth in her chest. "I would love that." They exchanged numbers, and Eric walked away with Rufus, waving one last time before turning the corner. Rachel entered her apartment with a smile she couldn't contain. The following Saturday, they met for breakfast at a local bakery. The next week, It was a movie. Soon, they were seeing each other regularly. Walks with Rufus in the park, simple dinners, shared reading sessions where they exchanged favourite books. For Rachel, each moment was a discovery. The way Eric looked at her when she spoke, as if every word was important. The way he held her hand, firm yet gentle. The small gestures, a good morning message, a flower picked during a walk, a book he thought she would like. In 1 month, Rachel had shared more about herself with Eric than with anyone else in years. She told him about her childhood as an only child, about the night she cried quietly because no one had invited her to the dance, about her secret fear that there was something fundamentally wrong with her. "There's nothing wrong with you, Rachel," Eric said, holding her hands during a picnic in the park where they had met. "Some people just take longer to find someone who truly sees them, and I'm so glad it was me who found you." The first kiss came naturally, under the stars, after a concert in the park. It was gentle, shy, perfect. Rachel felt as if her heart might burst with happiness. In the following months, Rachel experienced all the little joys she had always dreamed of: affectionate messages, unexpected surprises, someone to share both the joys and the concerns of everyday life. Eric supported her when she decided to show some of her short stories to a local literary magazine, and he celebrated with champagne when one of them was accepted for publication. She met his parents, a kind couple from the countryside who welcomed her as if she were already part of the family. Eric met Eleanor and Gregory, charming them with his sincerity and humour. "He looks at you as if you were the moon and the stars, dear," her mother commented after the presentation dinner. When they completed 1 year together, Eric took her back to that same bench in the park. Rufus, now more well-behaved but still enthusiastic, carried a small box tied to his collar. "Don't look now, but you are being watched," Eric said, repeating the first phrase he had ever said to her. When Rachel looked at Rufus, she saw the small box. With trembling hands, she untied it. Inside there was a delicate gold ring with a small blue stone. "Rachel Winters," Eric said, kneeling before her, "would you do me the honour of sharing your life with me? Of building our own story together? Of letting me love you every day for the rest of our lives?" With tears in her eyes, Rachel nodded. Yes. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. The wedding took place 2 years later, a simple ceremony in Eric's parents' garden, with Rufus serving as a ring-bearer, carrying the rings. Rachel wore a simple and elegant white dress, and Eric couldn't take his eyes off her throughout the ceremony. At the reception, during their first dance as a couple, Eric whispered in her ear, "I knew you would be the great love of my life from the moment Rufus ran to you on that park bench." Rachel smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. All the waiting, all the doubts, all the moments of loneliness had led to this, her true beginning, as her mother had said years ago. No matter how long it takes, you don't need to live through hundreds of romances to find true love. Rachel finally understood the deep meaning of those words. Her fairy tale hadn't started as she expected, nor when she expected. It began with an enthusiastic dog, an awkward veterinarian, and the words that would change her life forever. Don't look now, but you are being watched. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.